For centuries, the concept of a sanctuary has represented a physical boundary. It is a space designed to provide a layer of protection from the outside world. When we walk through the heavy wooden doors of a religious space, we make an immediate psychological assumption. We trust that the imposing architecture guarantees the morality of the people inside. But that deeply ingrained societal trust creates a dangerous blind spot. By assuming we are safe, we drop our guard. These specific accounts reveal a spectrum of threat, behaviors that use the aesthetic of holiness as camouflage. A building's facade does not dictate the intentions of the people inside. The very features that signal safety can, in the wrong hands, become the tools of isolation. The lowest rung of this spectrum, the psychological terror of the unknown, thrives in neglected spaces. In rural New Jersey, an abandoned church sat at the top of a blocked-off hill, isolated and unmonitored. Late one October night, 3 teens hiked up to the building. Seeking a scare, they sat in the pitch-black center of the sanctuary, lit 3 small candles, and set up a Ouija board. A sudden, loud crack echoed from the wooden altar. Seconds later, a rock the size of a golf ball launched out of the dark and slammed violently onto their board. The teens immediately fled. The situation shifted from a manufactured paranormal thrill to the grounded terror of realizing a physical human being was hiding in the dark with them, watching their every move. When a congregation vacates a building, they leave behind its geographical isolation. The empty structure becomes an unmonitored vacuum, creating a shielded environment for unseen physical threats to operate without scrutiny. Moving up the spectrum, the threat becomes the hostile collective, fringe factions that use the aesthetics of religion to establish territorial control. In South Carolina, 2 lost teenagers wandering the woods stumbled upon a decrepit brick church. Hoping to find a telephone, they walked inside, only to interrupt a silent, impoverished congregation. The piano player immediately stopped. The entire room turned and stared with dead, expressionless glares. As the teens slowly backed out the door and sprinted down the dirt road, a dozen men from the pews followed them outside, silently watching them retreat. A similar behavioral pattern occurred in rural Georgia. A couple looking for a Sunday Mass stepped inside a small roadside church, only to find a room filled entirely with unsmiling men sitting in silence. Here, the hostility escalated to overt aggression. A masked man standing by the altar pointed at the couple and demanded they leave immediately. When they sped away, one of the congregation's vans pursued them down the highway until they pulled into a sheriff's parking lot. In this model, a church's silhouette acts as a shield, providing aesthetic camouflage, while hostile, insular nodes operate beneath it. By combining rural isolation with society's reluctance to interfere, these collectives create an ideal incubator to grow in private. These groups weaponize the cultural respect for faith. By adopting the look of a congregation, they buy the privacy needed to remain undisturbed by the surrounding community. The peak of the threat spectrum is institutional danger, where the threat is a sanctioned, active member of the church community itself. In an active Catholic school complex in New Jersey, an 8-year-old Cub Scout began a sanctioned scavenger hunt. The danger had been established days earlier. During Sunday Mass, an older male church employee who lived on the grounds repeatedly stared at the boy from across the room, making uncomfortable, lingering facial expressions. The trap was sprung during the scavenger hunt. The man cornered the isolated boy by a cafeteria freezer, physically clamped his hand tightly around the boy's wrist, and tried to lure him into a restricted area with the promise of treats. The institutional predator weaponizes their trusted status. They use their insider knowledge of the building's layout to isolate their prey, operating entirely under the unquestioned authority of their role. The unseen rock thrower, the masked congregations, and the church worker all rely on the exact same mechanism, the victims voluntarily lowering their defenses. The halo effect is a psychological bias where the brain maps moral goodness onto specific structural shapes, like steeples and stained glass. Here, the assumed safety of the architecture overrides the reality of the threat. The most dangerous human threats rarely need to break into our lives. They simply wait patiently behind the doors we have been culturally conditioned to leave unlocked.